So welcome to the second session of Introduction to Mindfulness. And just a brief word about me. I've been a member of TNL, that is Tupten Norbu Ling, for several years. And I'm currently working on a FPMT teacher certificate. I've completed courses on minds and mental factors with Venerable George Churanoff and on mindfulness with Venerable Sangye Kadro. So I'll reference quotations for that reason that I'm still working on my certificate. I'll also bring in a lot of quotations from authorities and provide explanations where appropriate. TNL has many excellent resources as well in terms of teachers. Any of the ordained faculty or lay teachers have great experience and in-depth knowledge, and I encourage you to consult with them if you have any questions as well. So this course is designed to introduce you to the practices and techniques of mindfulness. And you'll learn to apply mindfulness to enhance mental focus by calming physical tensions and mental agitations. And you'll also better notice, once you calm your mind, your habitual thinking and change it through mindfulness. And hopefully we'll all learn how to nurture positive, wholesome inner qualities with this mindfulness practice. So this course is intended to serve both Buddhists and non-Buddhists, but is based on Buddhist concepts and perspectives. For that reason, I'll keep the presentation general where possible to have a broad interest and applicability. Really, beginning meditators are the target audience, but the nature of this material here requires some technical explanation, which I'll try and keep as simple as possible. And then that will allow you to understand mindfulness and its context, in particular in Buddhism. And of course, you're encouraged to comment, ask questions, give your reactions to help clarify your understanding. So when we begin, typically in Buddhist practice, when we begin a meditation session or a teaching session, we start with a motivation. And this is where we generate positive energy and a specific goal for our session. Why? Because we need energy, resolve, and a positive tone for a successful meditation or a successful teaching. So a specific goal for our meditation session prevents us from getting sidetracked or zoning out. We'll learn a little bit more about that tonight. We call it excitation and laxity, or distraction and dullness are other words we can use for that too. So let's begin by setting that motivation. And this isn't particularly Buddhist. It could apply to you if you are secular or if you have other belief systems, whatever you wish. But you can at least consider it as sort of a mental exercise, maybe even a mind-expanding experience. So in this motivation, we try as best we can to generate these four vast positive attitudes: benevolence, compassion, sympathetic joy in others' happiness and virtue, and impartiality in engaging with others. These are called the four immeasurables. Immeasurables because they apply to the immeasurable number of sentient beings. So may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And may all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment to friends and hatred for enemies. All right, thank you very much. I thought I might just open up the floor for any questions. Again, it's good to see you, Rachel. Did anything come up over the last week? Maybe you tried out. Oh, and Susan is back again. Good to see you, Susan. It's wonderful to see your face. And Jonathan, welcome. This is Jonathan. This is the second session. So if you have any questions, please just jump in, let me know. Maybe, if you want to ask, like, is this the right course or whatever, feel free to go ahead and do that. As I said a little bit earlier, we'll be doing some reviews, so you should be okay. But again, if anything arises, just let me know. All right. So anything, any kind of
Yeah, I
she,
had I mean, I don't know if
Rachel.
this is what you're looking for, but I feel like the mindfulness came into play. Um, I got kind of into it with a coworker. Um, he's, I guess, a subordinate. But this was a personal discussion in the break
Hmm.
room, and I didn't respond. I reacted, and then I was upset, and I left for lunch, and I just thought about it a lot, and it really doesn't matter about whatever he said to me, right or wrong. It was just I don't know, just taking like agency for my it was wrong intention, it was wrong speech. It wasn't a way to make things better. It just, so, and I went to him with that after and apologized. Um, and everything is, he also apologized to me, which I wasn't necessary, but was appreciated. But I mean, it's kind of hard to go back and say, like, hey, I'm a real jerk, or I was acting like a real jerk, or the things I said were just really based on this ego thing about don't question me, I know what I'm doing kind of thing. So I don't know if that's really comes into play, but I guess I'm kind of proud of myself, even though I didn't respond well. At least I took it up fairly soon after and remedied it. And it's a lesson, and maybe next time I will pause instead of feeling. I just started thinking about my ego and how what a small little petty little person was in there, and that was so ugly, and but without really beating myself up over being ugly at the time, letting it kind of go because I'm a human being and I got mad and he got mad and we both said things. So yeah. So I'm thinking it's a good thing.
Well, to be honest, Rachel, I have to say that's a truly amazing story. So you ought to be really proud of yourself. I mean, these these things happen to all of us. I know I've experienced many, many of them. And over time, we hope that part of this practice can, help us kind of like decouple just at the right instant, but it doesn't always happen. And, what you did is just so admirable. And I know I could learn from that as well. I just say that there's a very interesting meditation coming up. It'll be the fourth one of this whole series, this course. So it'll be the second one of this class that is really about the fundamental nature of the mind and how we regard ourselves and how we think of that ugly little ego, that I, and how it just like grows all out of proportion and takes over. So, if you're able to stay, and I'll do my best to keep the class on track and on time so that we can do that with you. So great story. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing that. And the importance really of being mindful of our emotions and our psychological processes, our interactions and dynamics with other people. Jean, did you want to say something? You got your mic open? No, you're good. Okay.
Mm-mm.
All right. If there's nothing else from anyone else, we'll go ahead and get started with an introduction. I'm sorry, I've done that already. Let's get started with a meditation. So I'll kind of recap what we covered last week, last session, and I'll just maybe recall the two meditations we did in the last session, which were mindfulness of breathing So being aware of our breathing, putting our attention on the breathing, and with mindfulness, keeping it there on the breathing, with relaxation. That was the first meditation we did. The second one was mindfulness of breathing with stability. Again, the same technique, but we focused employing the breathing lower down in the body in order to promote stability. Now we'll have a meditation on mindfulness of breathing with vividness, or you could say attentiveness. So, why I recap those two meditations from last session and then this third one is because this is one of our teachings from last session. These meditations relate to the physical qualities of relaxation, stillness, and vigilance that we try and establish in our body when we first sit down to meditate. And by establishing the physical qualities of relaxation, stillness, and vigilance, as well as by establishing those three qualities, relaxation, stillness, and vigilance, we also cue the mental qualities that correspond to them of calmness, stability, and attentiveness. How do we do that? Well, to establish those three physical qualities of relaxation, stillness, and vigilance, just go ahead and take a comfortable meditation posture. I won't over instruct at all. I'll just let you figure out what it is that worked for you last session, or maybe if you've been doing any meditations in the intervening time, just take a comfortable meditation posture. Remember, it can take time to settle into that posture, so don't rush or push. Now, how we develop the physical quality of relaxation, really, there's two ways, many ways, in fact, we could do it. I'll describe two here tonight. Just perform a scan of your body. You can begin with your feet and move through your body, through the legs, the hips, the torso, the shoulders, the arms, and then the neck, the head, paying particular attention to the face, maybe with the jaw, the eyebrows. Maybe you're carrying some residual stress from the day or the week. Just see what you can feel and just try and bring release and relaxation to those areas just as best you can. The other way you can bring relaxation to the body is just put your attention on the whole breath. That is, the whole cycle of breath. Inhalation entering the body and exhalation leaving it. And if you wish, you can also notice the points of stillness between the inhalation and the exhalation, and then the inhalation again. Now, in terms of the physical qualities of stillness, once you've adjusted to a comfortable posture, just try and refrain from any fidgeting or unneeded movement as best you can. If you find you have a feeling of discomfort or tension and pain, and you think it might disturb you and prevent you from focusing on anything, then it's okay to move around, but just try and reestablish relaxation and stillness as quickly as you can. Finally, for the physical posture of vigilance, you could call it attention, alertness. Just refresh the natural upright posture of your spine. placing your shoulders down and back and raising your sternum gently to maintain a posture of vigilance. By establishing these physical qualities of relaxation, stillness, and vigilance, we cue the corresponding mental qualities: calm, stability, and attentiveness. Last session, we had 2 meditations focusing on calm and stability. So tonight we'll do a third one, focusing on mindfulness of breathing with vividness or attentiveness. In terms of preparation, I'll just say a few words to get us set for the meditation, and then we'll do the actual meditation itself. So here's the preparation. And just let your mind, just let the words, percolate through your mind. It's okay to return to the breath if you begin to get distracted or experience dullness. At all times, value the quality of your meditation over the quantity of time spent in each session. If you sit for long periods but let your mind rove around unnoticed among distractions or fall into dullness, not only are you wasting your time, but also you are developing bad habits that will only get harder and harder to break. From the beginning of training in meditation, for most people, the primary problem is in this phase of practice is still distraction. However, some people are more prone to laxity, which manifests in coarse, medium, and subtle degrees. For the moment, we'll concern ourselves only with coarse laxity, which occurs when your attention mostly disengages from the object and sinks into spaced out vacancy. So maybe observe yourself, your own mind, and see which you tend to experience, whether it's distraction or dullness. And it can change from day to day. Dullness is like having the reception of a radio station mostly fade out, even without interference from another channel. Abiding in a state of coarse laxity can be very peaceful, with your mind relatively undisturbed by thoughts or emotional upheavals. But if you spend many hours each day in such a state of dullness, Tibetan contemplatives report that this not only has no benefit, but it can actually impair your intelligence. The acuity of your mind starts to atrophy, and over the long term, this can do serious damage. Now we'll begin the actual meditation. And just revisit the 3 touch points of relaxation, stillness, and alertness. And see if you can refresh those physically and mentally. Meditation on the breath with vividness. Take a few slow, deep breaths, breathing down into the abdomen and then into the chest. Let your awareness permeate your body, feeling the sensations of the respiration wherever they arise. Then let your breath flow of its own accord, settling into its natural rhythm. Mentally, the initial emphasis in this practice is on relaxation, which can be induced by attending to the sensations of breathing throughout the body. The second emphasis is on the stability of attention. And for this, it can be helpful to observe the sensations of breathing in the region of the belly. Then, having established a foundation of relaxation and stability, we shift the emphasis to cultivating vividness of attention. It is crucially important that stability is not gained at the expense of relaxation, and that the increase of vividness does not coincide with the decrease of stability. The relationship among these three qualities can be likened to the roots of a trunk and foliage of a tree. As your practice grows, the roots of relaxation go deeper. The trunk of stability gets stronger, and the foliage of vividness reaches higher. Now we'll shift the emphasis to vividness. You do this by elevating the focus of attention and directing it to a subtler object. Direct your attention to the tactile sensations of your breath at the apertures of your nostrils or above your upper lip. Wherever you feel the in and outflow of your breath. As you breathe in, you'll feel the cool air coming in. And as you breathe out, you'll feel the warmer air exhaled. Elevating the focus of attention helps induce vividness. That is, bringing attention up to the head, in this case, to the nostrils or upper lip, is what we mean by elevating the focus of attention. Just bringing it up to a higher spot on the body. Attending to a subtle object enhances that further. What we mean here is just that the area we're paying attention to is much smaller and also more sensitive with lots of nerve endings. So as you breathe with your attention at the nostrils or upper lip, observe these sensations at the gateway of the respiration, even between breaths. Sustain your attention there as continuously as possible. If the breath becomes so subtle that you can't detect the sensations of its flow, quiet your mind and observe more carefully. As you arouse the vividness of attention, eventually the sensations of the breath will become evident again. On the periphery of your awareness, you may still note other sensations throughout your body, as well as sounds and so on. Just let them be without trying to block them out. And focus your attention single-pointedly on the sensations around the apertures of your nostrils. Remember that you can count your breaths if you find yourself getting distracted and need an anchor. And use your introspection or self-awareness so that you quickly note whether excitation, that is, distraction, or laxity, that is, dullness, have arisen. And take the necessary steps to balance the attention when such problems occur. So that completes our beginning meditation. I wondered if there are any observations or questions. We built that meditation on a meditation on relaxation and then stability, and we added vividness.
Stephen, I have a question.
Yes, Susan.
That is, could we confuse dullness with thinking we're just very relaxed and in the moment? In other words, we may think we're not dull. We may think we're really super relaxed and where we're supposed to be, but actually it could be dullness. I mean, how do we tell them apart, really?
Yeah. And that's going to take experience, and it may be different, for different people's minds. It's interesting. I'd often thought, well, it's got to be distraction that's always the problem in meditation. And then I was speaking to another meditator, and he said, yeah, I just keep falling asleep and getting duller, dull and sinking feeling. What it takes is some kind of self-awareness and self-observation. And what I would also say is that there are different types of meditations. And one of them we discussed, we touched on briefly last week, which is kind of a general awareness, a sort of a field awareness where you're kind of relaxed, as you say, Susan. You're attentive, but you're not focused on anything. You're kind of just observing the mental events or like physical sensations that are passing through your body. So if you were in that state and you were nonetheless attentive and your mind was energized, then that possibly could be confused with a state of dullness in the type of meditation we're doing, which is called stability, stabilizing meditation, single pointed concentration. There are many names for it. But in this type of meditation that we're doing, or say an analytical meditation, which we're going to learn about today, your attention is on an object. And if you're finding you're easily slipping off that object, so you don't have mindfulness, or you can't really get a clear idea or kind of engagement with that object through concentration, or you're not really kind of grokking it or having any kind of like intelligence of it through the third mental faculty of wisdom, then that's when you know that its dullness is taking over. That was like a lot of words for your excellent question. I wanted to check with you though, and did that make sense?
Yes, that actually helps a lot to realize it depends on the type of meditation and of course the individual. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and like we just discovered, thanks to Allison, I must say that these meditations come from the excellent book, The Attention Revolution by Alan Wallace, who is an incredible Tibetan practitioner, a practitioner of Tibetan Buddhism. Yeah, he mentions in that meditation that we just had that it's actually a balance between relaxation, so just being kind of loose and relaxed, minimal energy, but stability, having enough kind of upward, upright, physically in our spine and in our posture, but also mentally. It's a balance between relaxation, stability, and then vividness. And those are three, like almost like three, can't do it with my fingers. It's like three sticks of a tripod that are all kind of mutually dependent on each other. And if one takes over too much, then yeah, the other, the whole structure falls down. Okay, were there any other questions? That was a great question, by the way, Susan. Thanks for throwing it out there. And also, I'd encourage you, Jonathan, you're new to the class. If anything does come up, just jump in there and, let me know if, yeah, if I can help out. So I'm going to do a quick review. I'll go through it fairly rapidly. So I'll rely on you guys just kind of jumping in, letting me know if, if I've gone over something. This is all from last week. But let me know if I've gone over something that isn't clear to you yet. But we had a number of terms last week, and we talked about the mind. That was our first term. And this is kind of the Buddhist understanding of the mind. You can, if you're, maybe interested in Buddhist or like Buddhist adjacent, or maybe have other traditions, just, assess it and see, would it be helpful? How does it fit in with your understanding and so on? And just, however you take it, just take it for what it's worth. So the mind is our subjective consciousness that perceives moment by moment a meditation object as a whole. And the mental factors within simultaneously apprehend or engage with the aspects of that object in specific ways. So an example is our breath. And the mind would be aware of all of the qualities and processes and like the dynamic change of the breath. But then we would say, for example, use the mental factor of mindfulness to focus attention onto the breath. So that is kind of a distinction between the mind and a mental factor. So the mind and its mental factors arise simultaneously. They can't be separated one from another. You can't have a mind without mindfulness, and you can't have mindfulness without a mind. That's really all it's saying. So meditation objects may be, those are the objects that we focus on in our mind. Meditation objects may be purely mental, internal to the mind, like emotions, ideas, or concepts, or maybe input from any of our five senses. And this is just like a minor point here, but Buddhists tend to view the Buddhist view here is that a mind engaging with a purely mental object is called, in their terminology, a mental consciousness or mind. And a mind that engages with a sensory object is a sense consciousness or mind. Now, we won't get into the differences between those two, but that will become an important distinction in more advanced studies. But for Buddhists, the mental consciousness is the most important because it's the one attended and directly affected by the wholesome and unwholesome mental factors. Oh, we didn't mention this last week, actually. So there are neutral mental factors like the ones we've been talking about: mindfulness, concentration, wisdom, introspective awareness. But then there are wholesome and unwholesome ones. Another reason that the mental consciousness is considered the most important is that it forms a stable basis when we familiarized ourselves with something in learning, in contemplation, or in meditation. What does that mean, stable basis? Well, what it means, the basis is stable, is kind of like technical lingo, means that the mental consciousness doesn't require additional effort once you've already familiarized yourself with something. When you've reached a certain level of understanding, knowledge, wisdom, intelligence about a certain thing, and it can be as simple as your breath, when you've reached a certain level, you can easily return to that level again, and you don't have to start from scratch. Now, of course, there's a proviso there that you kind of, every once in a while, you may have to refresh that knowledge. But generally, from day to day, once you have some kind of insight or knowledge or realization, you can access that the next day, the following week, the month, whatever. That's in the mental consciousness. That's what's special about it. Why? Because, well, let's give a counterexample here. Suppose you're a high jumper. If you jump 8 feet, the next time you can't build on that and say jump 16 feet. So the reason that Buddhists philosophize this is true is because the mind is called a clear phenomenon. It's immaterial. It's not a material phenomenon like our body, our muscles and bones and sinews and so on. We'll kind of touch on that again in the second meditation that's coming up in this session. So a mental factor is a component of the mind that is an aspect, quality, or ability of the mind that apprehends or engages with the meditation object. For example, the mental factors that we talked about last session: mindfulness, concentration, wisdom, and introspective awareness. So why do we even study mental factors, especially mindfulness, which is the focus of this course? It's the mental factors that are primarily responsible for leading us to all forms of our experience. When the mind is under the influence of unwholesome mental factors, such as attachment or anger, I had a great example today from Rachel, one is led into committing actions that cause experiences of frustration and suffering. But whenever the mind is dominated by wholesome factors such as compassion and patience, then any ensuing physical and vocal activity will only result in happiness and well-being. It is the unwholesome aspects of the mind that are the root of our bondage within samsara, the Buddhist view, whereas it is the wholesome aspects that allow us to discover freedom from this unsatisfactory condition. Since the principal motivating force behind our lives is the desire to find happiness and avoid suffering, it is thus essential to recognize the psychological processes that are at work within ourselves. Lots of like long words, but just watching what's happening in our mind and how does our mind work. Only by means of careful examination will we be able to realize exactly what the causes for our pleasure and pain are, and subsequently be able to engage in cultivating certain mental factors while discarding others. Oh, can discard mental factors. But as long as the mind continues to be dominated by unwholesome afflictions, then what we basically wish for and what we actually do in order to find it will be completely opposed to one another. While wishing for happiness, we shall only be creating the causes for further suffering. Thus, to investigate the functions, natures, and effects of the various thoughts and emotions that occur within us, and to act realistically upon our findings is the very essence of the study of Dharma and practice, the study and practice of Dharma. So that is the Buddhist view of why we study mind's mental factors, basically Buddhist psychology. So getting back to our terminology and definitions, mindfulness is a non-forgetfulness of the mind with respect to a familiar meditation object. So basically, it keeps us from becoming distracted. So whatever we notice comes fully to mind or fully into our conscious awareness. So again, with mindfulness, our attention engages the object without forgetting it, the breath, whatever. It depends on familiarity. The strength of our mindfulness is dependent on how familiar we are with the object. The greater the familiarity, the more practice we have in returning the attention to it and keeping mindful of it, the stronger the associations our mind has for the object, and the better our attention is able to stay mindful of the object. And then in kind of I guess the converse, that it keeps the object within the attention. Mindfulness also prevents the object from leaving the attention. It prevents distraction. And then with certainty, when we are mindful of an object, we fully attend to it and get to know it with a sense of certainty. So we have a certain engagement or vividness of the object. It's not sort of unclear, fuzzy, a focus. We give our full attention to our object of mindfulness, which can be the sensations in our body, the words of a loved one, the feeling in our heart, or the thoughts that are flowing through our mind. Mindfulness is a natural quality of our mind, and we already possess this ability to pay mindful attention to what is happening in our lives. What we need to do is to appreciate its importance to our well-being and learn how to nurture and strengthen this natural ability of ours. Just to give you a little bit of an analogy of mindfulness, this is a classical analogy, many centuries old. And it's said that fixing your attention on an object of meditation with mindfulness and controlling it is said to be like taming an elephant. So you can imagine a wild elephant crashing into a village and villagers running all over the place and houses getting knocked down and cars getting overturned and everything. Well, that's actually a pretty good metaphor for what sometimes happens with our mind when it gets out of control as well. So controlling our mind is said to be like taming an elephant. An elephant trainer ties a wild elephant to a tree or sturdy post with a thick rope. If the elephant does as the trainer teaches it, then fine. If not, it is subdued and controlled, struck repeatedly with a sharp iron hook. Your mind is like the untamed elephant. You bind it with the rope of mindfulness to the sturdy pillar of an object of meditation, like the breath. If you cannot keep it there, you must gradually bring it under control by goading it with the iron hook of vigilance, which is a synonym for introspective awareness. Concentration. So we said that we begin with mindfulness. It forms the foundation. And then when we've established mindfulness of an object, we're able to concentrate on it. We have it in our attention. And then what naturally arises, almost in the way of a smooth continuum, is concentration. So concentration dwells single-pointedly on the meditation object, thanks to mindfulness. It dwells there in a sustained way. It has the function of supporting wisdom, the third of this triplet of mental factors. The more intense our concentration, the more acute our wisdom becomes. Quotation from Lama Tsongkhapa. It's said that you achieve concentration on the basis of mindfulness, and that mindfulness is like a rope that actually fastens your attention to the object of meditation continuously. So mindfulness is the main technique to sustain in achieving concentration. When we say concentration, sometimes in this course, we'll use the words focus, meditative stabilization, meditative concentration, and so on. And then third is wisdom. Wisdom discriminates, characterizes, and evaluates the features of the meditation object, illuminating it like a lamp lights up a picture in a dark room. So when we have stability, attention fixed on an object through mindfulness, then we can begin to concentrate and access and engage with that object. And through that, we develop wisdom. That is simply comprehension, understanding, realization, could be discerning analysis. Other synonyms are intelligence as well. And then, as we've already touched on a little bit in this class and the prior class, there's introspective awareness. Introspective awareness is the mental factor that is aware of what we're doing and how we're doing it or should be doing it. So, if we've chosen the breath as our object of meditation, we use mindfulness to keep our attention on that. But when, after a second or two, our attention flags and drifts away, either through dullness or through excitement, then we notice that with something called introspective awareness. Vigilance is a word sometimes used. And then we know we're off the object that we chose, and then we bring our attention back on. So in meditation, mindfulness counteracts forgetting the meditation object, while introspective awareness protects against and remedies hindrances like distraction and dullness. Interestingly, it's the Buddhist position that by developing mindfulness, introspective awareness is developed as well, and we'll have an explanation of that. So synonyms for this are bare awareness, monitoring, vigilance. Sometimes it's likened to a spy in the mind. Here's a new analogy for mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. You try it out, see if it's helpful. A tripod holding a camera steady is like mindfulness. The lens that focuses the image is like concentration. The film that captures the color, detail, texture, light, and shade of the scene, discriminates it, is like wisdom. And then again, that new analogy we had today, an analogy for mindfulness and introspective awareness. So maybe to discriminate, help you a little bit with the terminology, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom work together, one after the other. Establish mindfulness, concentration comes up, and then wisdom results. Here, mindfulness and introspective awareness, either you're operating in a mindful way with the mental object, with the meditation object in your mind, or you're attending and noticing that you're not on that object. So with mindfulness and introspective awareness, they kind of one sort of comes in and then the other. And the analogy there is an elephant that is being trained is the mind, a sturdy post is the meditation object, a rope tying the elephant to the post is mindfulness. And the goad that trains the elephant to return to the post, but only when it tries to pull away, is introspective awareness. Well, that's a pretty fast review of last week's class. Any questions? You know, observations? All right, let's get in. So I thought I heard something.
Yeah, you did. Hello, it's Jay.
Jay.
Okay, I appreciate that metaphor and I find it really helpful. However, the metaphor that seems to suit my mind more precisely is the monkey mind,
Ooh,
because
yes.
it just jumps around all over and seems totally uncontainable. So I'll comment that. So I'm not, if you've got anything about what approaches are good to deal with a monkey mind, let me know. The other comment I have is that when I do the breathing exercise, I find very nice, Jonathan.
There
Thank
you go,
you.
Jonathan. Just tickle
Oh,
that
that
monkey.
sounds
Tickle your
that sounds.
monkey. Wasn't that like a song in the 80s or something? I don't know.
The
Go
other
ahead,
comment.
Jay. I'm sorry.
That's okay. This is good. The other comment from my point of view is that if I go to watch the breath, this is perhaps an idiosyncrasy of mine. My attention gets very confused because I start watching the mechanisms, the stomach, the air, it's like it's an activity for me
Yeah.
to pay attention to the breath to that extent. I'm much better off for me if I focus on like just and not even the sensation, but the patch underneath the nose, that flat bit. I just put my attention there and I don't even look at sensation, but just at least there's one point I can put my attention on, and that seems to be the best pathway for me.
Yeah. And that is a classical meditation advice. By moving, if you're working with the breath, you can move your attention on the breath in different ways.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is like if if you're losing stability and getting like too flighty, you can either focus on the whole breath and just relax into that. But then what can happen sometimes is what you just described. It's too much. And so you place your attention right here and you kind of constrain and constrict where your attention is. That helps you focus.
Yeah.
If the opposite is happening, of course, and you're getting too intensely focused and you're almost getting overwhelmed, what you can do then is then put your attention back into the body, or if another recommendation for increasing stability is to just attend to the movement of the belly in and out. So it's still focused, but it's lower down on the body and tends to help calm things down. So that's an excellent observation. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
All right. I think maybe what we'll do is we'll have a quick 5-minute break. All right. Well, let's go ahead. Now we're going to cover some new information. And this is just kind of an aside. I did mention that this particular class is pitched towards Buddhists, non-Buddhists, whatever you can find useful from these teachings, you're welcome to take with you. And part of that is the Buddhist approach to how you engage with teachings. And I'll just read a little quote from the Buddha himself, who says, "Just as a goldsmith would test his gold by burning, cutting, and rubbing it, so must you examine my words and accept them, not merely out of reverence for me." So that's just a little reminder that um, you're welcome to assess and evaluate and integrate these teachings into your own mind, however it would help you best. Now we'll just say a little bit about the different types of meditation. And this was kind of, I think this is helpful. We touched on it a little bit earlier. And so in this system, this Buddhist system of meditation, there's two main types, stabilizing and analytical. Both are necessary for the complete development of the mind. In general, stabilizing meditation is called the cultivation of calm abiding or single-pointed concentration. That's what we've been doing up to now. And in case you wondered, the other broad category is analytical meditation. And here, specifically in this tradition, it culminates in the cultivation of something called special insight, vipassana. Now, Jonathan just mentioned that word, I think, during the break, but this is a very specific kind of Tibetan utilization of that word. So you can think of stabilizing meditation, mindfulness. It culminates in a state called calm abiding, where we can stay on the meditation object, keeping it clear and vivid in our mind for as long as we want, they say. And then you can think of an analytical meditation, which might just be likened to thinking. We'll give some examples soon. But analytical meditation, where you're analyzing, you're going through a chain of reasoning or a series of concepts or visualizations. That analytical meditation is the cultivation of special insight, is called the cultivation of special insight. So it culminates in special insight. I think that's what I wanted to say, or vipassana. So stabilizing meditation, the focusing of the mind on a single object, is what we Westerners commonly think of as meditation. But sometimes analytical meditation, that is analysis within a meditative framework, is maybe less well known. Or maybe not. Maybe we just do it without even knowing it. I'm kind of thinking about maybe Rachel's, what she related earlier, is maybe she was doing analytical meditation and just kind of reviewing the events that happened before her lunch hour, and then, how she dealt with it, and did a great job. So analytical meditation can cover various degrees of analysis. At a minimum, it involves following a specific line of thought without any obvious formal reasoning, as in various types of Buddhist meditations, maybe to generate compassion and so on. Or it can involve examining a topic point by point according to specific criteria. So that might be some kind of logical reasoning about how one establishes the Buddhist realization of emptiness, something like that. In its full form, analytical meditation involves formal reasoning and internal debate, similar to the debates carried on by Tibetan monks in the debating courtyards of their monastic colleges. The meditator uses syllogisms to challenge, that is, logical reasoning, to challenge his or her own previously unquestioned views, or explores their absurd consequences of their previously unquestioned views. So that's just a designation or a distinction between two very broad categories of meditation. Now we'll return to mindfulness and relate it to some of the other mental factors. Well, the two other mental factors that go with it, concentration and wisdom. So, with mindfulness as our base, and then concentration as kind of the intensity and engagement that results from a stable base. In this tradition, mindfulness is extensively presented in um, cultivated in the context of developing meditative stabilization or calm abiding. I mentioned it. That's the end goal of the type of meditation we're doing. Mindfulness is the main technique for accomplishing such states of concentration. So, calm abiding is a kind of like a pinnacle of concentration on a single object. So, we talk about the training of mindfulness first because this will enable beginners like us to settle our body and mind into the practice of mindfulness, because mindful attention to the object of meditation, our breath or our body, helps in relaxing the disturbances of physical tensions and calming the mind to create a neutral and pliant state. So first, in a meditation session, we relax the body and calm the mind just to get us to neutral and create a state of pliancy. It may only take advanced meditators 21 breaths, maybe even fewer, to reach that state. Some of us, depending on what's happened to us during the day, how we're feeling, it could take, maybe a few minutes, maybe longer. Now, relating mindfulness and wisdom, mindfulness is relevant to our training in wisdom and to developing the extremely powerful and stable insight that can unite with calm abiding. So, meditative stabilization or mindfulness meditation culminates in calm abiding. Analytical meditation, just thinking, analyzing, running through scenarios, possibilities, whatever. I'm just throwing out some examples here. It culminates in special insight. And then in the meditation textbooks, they say there is a combination of the two, which combines the incredible stabilization of calm abiding with the unbelievable penetrative insight of special insight, or vipassana. So that's a combination of shamatha and vipassana. And when those two are united by an extremely highly realized meditator, that results in something called samadhi. So an incredibly stable but powerful concentration to examine these topics of deep, profound interest. And that's what we're working with here. That's what we started from the very beginning of this class, working with mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. And then they say they can culminate in this incredibly powerful mind. So again, how mindfulness relates to wisdom. So in practice, wisdom is kind of differentiating, discriminating, analyzing the characteristics of the object that are in our attention through mindfulness and engaged with or accessed through concentration. And mindfulness holds that object in mind without distraction, so we can do the analysis required to generate wisdom. And then mindfulness returns once that wisdom, that realization is generated. Mindfulness then keeps that conclusion, that realization, that observation or insight derived from the investigation and analysis in mind in order to familiarize ourselves with it. That's what we did at the end of the class last week. So when we did our dedication, we thought about, well, the positive feelings, the insights, the realizations we had at the end of that class, what we might have discovered about our minds, how they work. And then we just took that feeling and focused on it. and just tried to keep it in our mind. So that is an example of having a wisdom, a realization, an intelligence, knowledge, if you will, and then returning to a mindful, I guess, a mindful observation of that final result and fixing it in our memory. Just a note here, in this tradition, when discerning analysis, that is wisdom, is applied to an object held by mindfulness, this can involve thinking, reflecting, and contemplating using various concepts, scriptural quotations, correct reasonings. These are all Buddhist examples. Analytical meditation, in short. So mindfulness doesn't exclude thinking. You can have a series of objects in your mind, a chain of reasoning, and be mindful of each link in that chain. I think I'll maybe pause here and ask, are there any questions or observations? If not, we'll just go on.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so is concentration before mindfulness, and are those two things different? And what is mindfulness if concentration is first? Because I've been working on concentration under the idea that mindfulness is what I'm going to do next after I master concentration.
Right.
Does that make
Right.
sense?
It's a great question. And in the
Yeah.
presentation I'm giving, you actually begin with mindfulness. But
Oh, instead of
yeah, it's a
what
continuum,
is
really.
mindfulness then?
Mindfulness is, and let's use an example, mindfulness of the breath. It just means
Okay.
keeping in mind the sensations of the breath. That's all.
Paying attention to.
Paying attention, just putting your attention on something. And Jennifer, what happens to you when you just put your attention on something and you keep it there?
Well, when I do it in meditation, I start to feel a little bit more calm,
That's right. So
a
you
little bit
calm
better.
down
Yeah.
and you begin. And why do you calm down? Because the other distractions, they go away, right? Because all you have is kind of your, say, your breath in your attention. And then what happens almost naturally, almost imperceptibly, like a continuum or a process. And then if your attention is just held on that breath stably, you begin to notice things, you engage with it more. It takes over kind of, right? Because you said you became calm. That means is the other distractions that are distracting you and making you not calm have gone away.
Okay.
So what concentration is here is once you've gotten a stable attention on a mental, kind of like on a meditation object, once you have stable attention on it, naturally the mind engages with that because, well, there's nothing else, right? It's just looking at that closer and closer, more intensely, more focus, with more focus, like I said, vividness, engagement, and so on. And so that's concentration.
So is that the same as mindfulness, or that's different?
Yeah, mindfulness is kind of like the first step in a process. So you're just taking that object and making sure your attention stays on that object.
And then
And
how is
then,
that different than concentration then?
yeah. And so then so it's like you can think of it as the foundation for concentration. Because let's look at the opposite. Suppose your mind is jumping all over the place.
Okay.
Can you concentrate?
No.
So mindfulness is keeping the mind from jumping all over the place. If your mind is stable and is not jumping all over the place, what is it doing?
You're paying attention.
Yeah, your attention, and then your attention is there on that object. And then gradually, because your attention is on that object,
You're
you're looking at
concentrating.
it. Exactly. You got it. You
Okay.
got it. Nicely done.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
as a result of concentrating, you kind of realize or notice or observe things.
Okay. I think I get it a little bit.
Think about
Thank
it a
you.
little bit and observe it in your mind. See if that works.
Okay.
But yeah, mindfulness, just think of it like the basis or foundation of stable attention. And then you can concentrate. And then the
Okay.
opposite, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bouncing all
Every time you say
around.
it, it makes more sense every time you say it.
Yeah.
So,
Like all these teachings, you just have to hear them a whole bunch of times and, gradually integrate them with your own experience and other things you've heard. Yeah. Jonathan, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, let me see. I think I like to joke a lot. So anyway, uh, I think you said, okay, so types of meditation, there's either there's stabilizing and kind of analytical, right?
Yeah.
And the stabilizing could be to create concentration
Yeah.
or mindfulness, to focus the mind in almost so you can break through the monkey mind or something like that.
Well, so I know the analogy you're referring to, and I'm not as familiar with it. So I'm going to stay away from it a little bit so I don't mess it up.
Okay. And then
But
there's analytical, and I think in
yeah,
Tibetan Buddhism, they did Lamrim, which was 21 steps or 21 stages, which was the loving kindness meditation, meditation on compassion, meditation on equanimity, those kind of
yeah.
things. And they were guided
Well,
meditations.
there's
So,
the 7 steps and then there's the 11 steps. I'm not sure I've heard the 21 steps before, but I have no sure.
all right. Um, Let me see. And so it seems like the concentration leads to kind of a breakthrough where
Yeah.
you can kind of break through the very fuzzy kind of static.
I think
You
that's a
know,
good way. So you can kind of focus, you kind of engage
right.
engage with the object, whatever you're observing.
And then it can lead, but there's a lot. I mean, I compared I was writing things down and comparing them to other spiritual practices too. And I mean, I personally have to focus and pray before I meditate just to purify, get everything out, sublimate things, get focused, because otherwise my mind just kind of churns. So it
Yeah.
actually is a form of concentration to get the mind there. And then,
Yeah. It's kind of like maybe, yeah. I don't know if I'm familiar with your practices, but just here we just do like a very simple where we just kind of scan the body or just in
okay,
general, just kind of watch the breath. But that's the
okay.
same thing. It's a way, it's a kind of purification. So we purify in order to come sort of like a neutral and pliant state.
Yeah.
That is, we just kind of calm, just relax the body and calm the mind. And then
And
we get in the
yeah,
state where we can begin to meditate and do meditations like we did at the top of the class.
cool.
Make
And I
sense?
think, yeah. And I think that the calm abiding seems like it's always there, but there's a monkey mind, a funky mind on top of it that we're trying to get past, or somehow, like the Buddha said, fill the salt water cup full of water so it eventually becomes clear water. So
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I
thanks
I
for
think
your,
no, I was just trying to understand the basic roadmap you're putting down.
Yeah.
So I think I understand.
Okay, great. All right. Well, we're getting close to the end of, let's see what I should do. If you just give me a moment. Yeah, okay. So this is what we'll do is I'm just going to give you like a very quick rundown of like the two enemies of mindfulness. And those are, and we've mentioned them a bunch of times tonight, those are distraction and dullness. And you could also say that distraction is kind of like excitement. Anything that takes you kind of like excites or energetically takes your attention off of your object, your meditation object, the breath. And then there's dullness, which is kind of a, it's also called laxity. It's called like a sinking, dull, low energy kind of feeling, where things just sort of get gray and fuzzy and out of focus and so on. Those are the two major kind of or broad categories of impediments to mindfulness. And we know this already. We can observe it in our own mind. We probably observed it like a million times, but just never really labeled it that way. So we start to pay mindful attention to our experiences, including the body. We become aware of how our attention does not stay with the object of mindfulness. There are processes that interrupt and draw our attention away. These fall into two broad categories that we can call dullness and distraction. And dullness just refers to the loss of alertness and vividness of attention. This includes experience of drowsiness and sleepiness that may lead to sleep, spacing out, darkness, fogginess of mind, and an overall lack of energy of the mind, so that the mind is not as clear and vivid as it can be in engaging its object. And distraction refers to the movement of attention away from the object of mindfulness towards sound, thoughts, and other experiences. It represents an excessive amount of energy in the mind that prevents attention from settling down and stabilizing on the object of mindfulness. And the most common type of distraction, which also greatly contributes to our stress level, is that due to our compulsive involuntary thinking. And this refers to the many thoughts that capture our attention and keep it involved in matters of the disintegrated past or the imaginary future, and often accompanied by various, maybe unwanted emotional reactions. So in general, just a practice, and I'll deal with this at a very high, very broad level. There's many other approaches to dealing with those two. But just in general, with the help of a practice like mindfulness of breathing, and by repeatedly and gently returning our attention to the simple breath sensations in our object, we can begin the process of weakening our old habits of dullness and distraction. So let's end up with a meditation on the conventional nature of the mind, the fundamental nature of the mind. But maybe before we do that, I should just like ask if there's any questions before we wind up today's class. All right. Well, this, I don't know, did I miss a chat?
Oh, I had a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it seems like both the dullness and the distractions are forms of getting kind of stuck in temporary or forms or materialism, and mind gets pulled away or either gets stuck. Because I think that, the dullness is a form of being stuck, the mind being stuck at a low level matter. But yeah, so in a way, you're trying to pull yourself out of all that through the practices.
Yeah. And it's really, I would agree with that. I mean, you can see them as almost habitual tendencies to either get, and we all have these, to either get like excited and distracted and just, go there, or just to be kind of, dull, inattentive, low energy. I mean, they're just kind of, they may have like a physical basis, you might mental habits and so on. But yeah, stuck is a good word. The kind of things that we struggle with all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for that comment, Jonathan.
Yep.
So go ahead and assume a meditation posture. And I'll say a few words to kind of introduce, first of all, help you establish the posture. And again, you can think about what I just said about dullness and distraction, and then using the physical posture with relaxation, stillness, and vigilance, which in turn cue a mental state of calm, stability, and attentiveness. And think of that as kind of your first line of defense against either dullness or distraction, whether you tend to one or the other, combinations of the both, who knows? So take a meditation posture, and if you wish, just perform a scan of your body, noticing any tension or discomfort, bringing release and relaxation to those areas as best you can. Or you can just follow the whole breath, the inhalation entering the body, the exhalation leaving it, and the points of stillness between those two. And I think this is the same process that Jonathan described for us that he did at the beginning of his meditations. We're just kind of relaxing the body, clearing it of tension, preparing ourselves into a neutral and pliant or pliable state, if you prefer. Once you've adjusted to a comfortable posture, refrain from any fidgeting or unneeded movement as best you can. That is the physical quality of stillness. And then refresh the natural upright posture of your spine. Shoulders down and back, and raising your sternum gently to maintain a posture of vigilance. Remember that I mentioned these are three qualities. Cue the mental qualities of calm, stability, and attentiveness in our mind. And if we do these, then we'll have a natural defense or bulwark against the enemies of mindfulness, which are distraction and dullness. If that defense or bulwark is somehow breached, the friend of mindfulness, introspective awareness, will notice and refresh those three qualities. In fact, you will refresh those three qualities. So let's begin with this meditation on the clarity of the mind. This is interesting. This is actually to me, a very advanced meditation. Take it for what it's worth. It may be incredibly easy for you. That wouldn't surprise me. It may also evade and escape you and take several tries, but here it is, and I'll read a few words to prepare you. The reality of our existence is that we're a combination of body and mind. Each of these, in turn, is a combination of many parts, all constantly in a state of flux. Unfortunately, our ego is not satisfied with such a simple explanation. It complicates matters by fabricating a view of an I or self based on our conceptions, likes, and dislikes. We think, I'm attractive, I'm ugly, I'm a good dancer, I'm right in this situation, I won't succeed, I have a bad temper. We believe these projections and assume they are permanent and unchanging. We do the same with people and with objects in the world around us. We believe he is ugly, she is good. We build up our own elaborate and very solid picture of reality and hold on to it unquestioningly. This meditation on the clarity of the mind, which we're about to do, we're still in the preparation phase. This meditation on the clarity of the mind is an effective antidote to our concrete projections. We can gain a direct experience of the clear, non-material, transient nature of all thoughts and perceptions, feelings, and so on, thus weakening the tendency to identify or over-identify with them. As the subject, the mind softens, so too do its projected objects. So here in this terminology, the subject is the mind, it is what is observing, and the meditation object is the object, what is being observed. So these, the mind and its projected objects slowly lose their concreteness. The feeling of dislike towards the bad person may still arise through habit, but we now have the space to recall this is a projection of my thought, which is clear and transitory. It appears in my mind like a cloud in the sky and will soon pass. It appears in my mind like a cloud in the sky, forever changing and altering, and soon will pass. The object, in fact, does not exist in the way that I see it. This meditation is especially effective for softening our view of our own self. Normally, our self-esteem is low based on past mistakes, personality faults, bad habits, and the like. But anger, jealousy, selfishness, depression, and the other problems that haunt us are mental experiences and therefore clear and transitory. These states of mind depend for their existence on our belief in them. By recognizing this in meditation on the mind's nature, we learn to let go of and stop identifying with these experiences. Our intrinsic nature is clear and pure and is with us 24 hours a day. The negativities that rise and fall like waves on the ocean of our consciousness are temporary and can be eliminated. Consistent practice of this meditation will eventually generate a certainty about the pure nature to the point where it becomes our reality, our actual experience. So let's begin the meditation by observing our breathing without thinking, without conceptualizing. Naturally, thoughts and concepts will come up, but just don't give them any energy. Just let them subside again. Once your awareness has become sharp, turn your attention to the clarity of your consciousness. Remember that you can focus on the sensations of the breath at the nostrils or on the upper lip in order to sharpen the clarity of your consciousness, and then return to observing your breathing. Your consciousness or mind is whatever you are experiencing at the present moment. Sensations in your body, thoughts, feelings, perceptions of sounds, and so forth. The nature of each of these experiences is clarity. That clarity is without form or color. It is space-like. It is just pure awareness. Focus your attention on this clear, pure nature of the mind. Now, this is definitely true, and it's very common, and it's nothing to be concerned about. But initially, it might be difficult to find the actual object, that is, the clarity. If so, meditate on a mental image of the clarity. And one way to generate such an image is to visualize space. Imagine lying on a hilltop and staring up at a sky that is completely clear and free of clouds. Concentrate on this vast, unobstructed emptiness. Imagine that it flows down and embraces you and your surroundings. Everything becomes empty like space. Hold this experience. Feel that the nature of your mind is like this clear, empty space. You could visualize thoughts like clouds in the sky, a clear, empty, open sky, the clouds passing through it, continuously transforming, arising and vanishing, each and every cloud. The clouds are like our thoughts. And the space is the luminous experience, perception that allows those clouds to form, transform, and vanish without obstruction. It is this space, this sky, that we're trying to get a sense of in this meditation. Thoughts and distractions will arise, but do not react to them. Neither follow them nor reject them. Give them no energy. They'll vanish. Remember that they are clear by nature, without substance, immaterial. Simply watch them come and go, and then return to the awareness of the mind's clarity. Don't think about anything during this meditation. There's no need to wonder what the mind is. Simply observe it. Its clear nature, which is like infinite empty space. That is sufficient. Be natural. Meditation is simple and natural. It's nothing special. Mindfulness means holding the mind on an object continuously without forgetting it. The automatic result of mindfulness is the perception of the meditation object, which is free of concepts. A light does not need to think, I am dispelling darkness. It simply illuminates. Perception is an inner light that enables us to see things more clearly. It dispels the heaviness of how things appear to us, thus weakening our clinging or aversion to them. Well, that completes the meditation. Were there any reactions to the meditation at all, or
For me,
hard?
that was a very amazing meditation, analytical meditation. I've never been able to get so far into it before. That was a very good meditation.
Well, that's
Thank
great.
you.
Congratulations, Suzette. You did the hard work. But also, if your mind was just like caught up in like images and associations and concepts and thinking like, where is it? That's okay too. It can be a very slippery thing to find. So, anyone else want to say anything? All right. Well, thank you for your patience. I hope hanging around for that meditation was worth it. It's a very interesting one. So we will end up by dedicating what we've done today. And again, I like to say this is that you guys did an incredible amount of work, taking time out to, learn, engage with new concepts, maybe even with the motivation of trying to improve yourself, to help yourself and others. So that's pretty amazing. That creates kind of an amazing energy, in particular in the Buddhist view. It creates a very powerful, positive karma. And so we take that karma and we dedicate it for something that includes ourselves, but is also bigger and outside ourselves, in the hope that that karma will come to fruition in that way. So we dedicate with a very short verse, but also very profound verse. In a way, an earth-shaking verse from Shantideva's Way of the Bodhisattva, the 10th chapter, the dedication chapter, and also the motto of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. For as long as space endures, and for as long as living beings remain, until then may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been such a pleasure to work with you and interact with you. Thank you for coming. Again, next week, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Okay. All right. Have a good evening, you guys. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Great to see you all again.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Stephen.